little engine. Welcome to Cognitive Rampage podcast. Now, I'm your host, Adam Lowery, as always. Hope you're taking care of you. Hope you're living your cognitive rampage for sure. I know the man that's sitting on the other end of this podcast definitely lives his cognitive rampage. Mr. Danny Page, my friend, welcome to the podcast, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Adam. Thank you so much for having me. Definitely excited to be here, bro.
Well, I've been excited to have you on, man. Like everyone kind of knows, I watch people on social media and I'll kind of, it's stalkerish. It's weird, but you kind of, you follow to see, right? Because every once in a while you'll see somebody posting some really good stuff and then you'll see them just snap out and lose it like I do sometimes. So but anyway, man, you're true to your message, man. You're true to what you believe, what you say. And I love how you live that with no apology. So if you will, man, tell, all the listeners and stuff, what you do.
So Adam, I guess I've been kind of I hate the word life coach, but I've just been kind of a spiritual leader for a bunch of people over the past year. I run a program called The Power of Truth, which is a one-on-one intensive retreat. And here's my sales pitch. I look at people in the eyes and I tell them, I'm going to save your life and I will change your life and I'll help you find your purpose and why. And that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no stories. There's no, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and I'm going to fly you to Phoenix. We're going to get down to the dirty, figure out what's going on in your life and figure out how we can help you heal so that you love yourself again. So that's what I do by day and by night. Also the vice president of a company called RushClub, which is all about, I don't want to use the fitness industry, but let's just say the functional fitness industry and helping not only people exercise, but also especially focusing on the veterans and the adaptive community. And our motto is basically, we're here to move, touch, and inspire people. And we run kind of a head-to-head fitness competition that we're taking out on the road, and we're leaving Phoenix, Arizona to head to Florida next. Wow. And we've got over 1 million people coming to our next show.
Wow, man. I saw some things with some disabled veterans and people specific to that with the Rush Club.
Yeah. We started initially with the CrossFit community, and one of our CEO is a veteran from Afghanistan and Iraq, and he had the idea to help warriors that used to battle overseas come back home and still feel like they're a warrior. And we've been able to, put them up against, other warriors and go at these competitions. And it doesn't matter if they've lost one arm or one leg, or we've had some guys that have lost both legs that have been in wheelchair. And I tell you what, man, the hair stands up on the back of my neck when we get into these competitions, because it's not about fitness. It's about the audience. And there's these kids in the front row and their eyes are huge, because talk about inspiration. You can watch an NFL athlete or an Olympic athlete, but they can't reach out and touch them. And then all of a sudden, these guys in these wheelchairs come by and they give high fives to all these kids in the front row. And my eyes just well up because I get so emotional just watching it.
Man, that's beautiful, man. Before we go farther into that, because we're probably going to talk 2 hours just about that. I like to know the story, behind the inspiration, behind the wisdom, behind the drive. I mean, walk me through, your life, if you don't mind, and tell me those game-changing stories, if you will. Those what built Danny Page is kind of what I'm looking for. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It all started back in 1984. To be honest with you, I've told this story a couple times, and it's taken me about 30 years to be able to share it with people, because it used to scare me. And Christmas Eve of 1984. I grew up in a Catholic household, so we were getting ready for church, for the night before Christmas. And my sister at the time was 14 years old, and I was 5. She was 9 years older. And she was having these headaches that she was complaining about, and she didn't want to go to church. She didn't feel good. So my parents were like, we'll go ahead and let you stay. And I was this little weasel 5-year-old that thought, I'm going to stay with her. I'll take care of her. And I'll never forget, I went and got one of those blue ice packs. Remember the old ones that we used to keep in the freezer? And I put that across her head. And my parents headed off to church. And we had opened a present for Christmas Eve before they left. And it was a Polaroid camera. That's 1984, so I'm dating myself. But I was snapping pictures of her, and she was teaching me how to use an old accountant style like calculator. And I'll never forget that photo because she's got that blue pack across her eyes. And my parents were probably gone 10 or 15 minutes. And then my sister Wendy had a massive aneurysm. And it happened right in front of me, Adam. And it scared the crap out of me because she screamed and screamed and screamed. And there was nothing I could do. Back in 1984, there wasn't 911. We had the old rotary phones. And somewhere on there was the phone number to the police department. And I never figured out how to do that. So I just stayed there and held her hand as long as I possibly could. And her hand just kind of went limp in my hand. And I don't know time at this time because time, I lost all accountability of time. My parents got home maybe a half hour later and saw what had happened. I was screaming and crying. My sister was just kind of laying there. And I'll never forget my dad. He reached up and grabbed her in his arms, and her legs were hanging down, her head was hanging down. And my parents ran, jumped in my dad's big truck. I'll never forget the sound of it leaving, and they ran to the hospital. I don't know what happened from there. I kind of blacked out in terms of where I was emotionally. The hardest thing for me, Adam, was nobody came. Back then we didn't have cell phones, and my parents were fighting to keep my sister alive. And so I sat there from, maybe 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock received till, Christmas morning, the following morning, traumatized and not quite knowing what was going on. People started to show up at my house, random people, and the looks on their face, like, I'll never forget. And it seemed like all of a sudden it was Christmas time and the music was on and the Christmas tree. And my parents came home not long after that. And they brought me into the room and they said, your sister's not going to be here for Christmas. At that age and at that time, I couldn't comprehend what had happened. So I went back into the living room and started to open presents. And my parents, I still have the photos in a photo album. You can see the look on not only my parents' face, but everybody that was in the room there, because they all knew what had transpired and what had happened and that we had lost my sister. But more importantly, everybody was just trying to keep it together for me so that I didn't lose what was going on in my life. That right there was...
Talk about a life.
Yeah. That's what created the person that is sitting in front of you right now. And it's something that I didn't ever deal with, Adam. I've up until a few years ago, I turned to every possible thing you could think of to numb, from being an athlete to exercising to eating correctly, perfect grades. I always strive to be the best, it's because I felt like that's what my parents wanted. And I felt like that would, make me better in their eyes and my eyes and everybody's eyes.
You were living for two people, man.
Absolutely. You are absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean,
and
it's almost like I can't get out of my, what that would be like, man, to hold, my sister or someone, like my brother like that and go through that, man. Oh my, that's, man, you were doing that for two people, most definitely, man. That drive was serious.
Yeah. And it just, when I got through college and I started to I went to Arizona State University and I started to kind of get into the night scene. I would go out, and the drinking became more and more. The drinking came to drugs because that made me feel a little bit better. It was anything that I could do to check out from feeling. And unfortunately, my parents have never dealt with it either. It's been a place of denial for all three of us for years. And for me, I'm a very emotional person and very intuitive person. So I'm always feeling that energy around me. And as I'm getting into my 20s, it's just pushing me harder and harder. And what it's done since my 20s up until a couple years ago is it just really spun me out of control. I mean, I won't lie to you. I've hurt myself so badly the last 10 years, and everybody around me. It came to an eclipse, kind of the wheels came off the bus, like I guess you could say, It was February 10th of 2013. And I lost it. I drank until I couldn't drink anymore. And I lost it on everybody that was around me. And I grabbed a gun and I put a gun in my mouth. I had my wife at the time that was laying beneath me, and I wanted to check out. I wanted the pain of all the years of everything that I'd been through to come to a stop at that time. And I tried and I tried and I tried every avenue, from therapy, psychotherapy to medication, you name it. I've tried everything. And at this point in my life, at this time of night, it was about 9:30 at night in February of 2013, I wanted to stop right there. And had two policemen not tased me, I would not be sitting in front of you right now. And it was at that moment where the change and the parallel change came for me in my life, because I lived that night.
At that moment, or
at that moment, my whole timeline changed, because I was spared that night, and I know I was spared for a reason. At that time, I just thought, crap, I'm in a lot of trouble. And I did, Adam. I lost everything. I lost business. I lost every ounce of money I had, which ended up in a bankruptcy, ended up in a divorce. My daughter, who's now 16 years old, was taken from me. Talk about losing everything. You know, I've got a great business. It's gone. I have great friends. They're gone. I was a volunteer for the sheriff's department, search and rescue, gone. Everything that I wanted in my life that I'd worked so hard to get was gone at that one moment of that night. And I'll never forget, I woke up in a 4-foot by 4-foot jail cell after this, of all this chain of events of being, arrested and transported and everything. And I sat there, and they had taken the shoelaces out of my shoes so I wouldn't hang myself. I mean, that right there in itself was the biggest reality check. I'm in a 4-foot by 4-foot square. I can't even extend my arms out. And I have nothing. I don't know where I'm at or where I'm going. And it was at that moment that I hit rock bottom. And I realized something's got to change here. Like, this is really, really bad. So that's where this whole change in my life really started. That's when I opened my eyes to spirit. That's when I opened my eyes to energy. That's when I opened my eyes to, how do I help myself heal? Because I can't let this situation with my sister continue to eat me apart. She would not want that.
You changed. I mean, you took for a moment, you said this can't be the end of a story. You changed the narrative in a moment. You changed a belief. I mean, all in one moment. That's why I like to say, a lot of people talk about change as this process, but I think in that given moment, sometimes not only can it affect us for life, but it can also change our entire lives. Like that fast. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, it did. And it was, for the first time in my life, I felt free. And what I mean by that is, I got moved from that cell, and I got put into a general population, and I got processed and put into an actual county lockup, where I'm in a room with a bunch, I'm talking about maybe 400 or 500 guys.
This is the first time you've been locked up before?
Absolutely. First time I'd ever done anything wrong. I think the worst thing I'd ever done was had a ticket. I mean, I'm a straight A student, I own entrepreneur, I own my own companies, a great father, great husband. And all of a sudden, like in the blink of a hat, it's gone. And I'll never forget, I'm on an elevator, and I'm shackled to 5 other guys. And I don't know if I'm going up or down. That's how discombobulated I am. And I'll never forget the guard is standing in front of these 2 doors, and he says, "You guys are just about to enter hell. Prepare yourself." And when those doors opened, it looked like something out of an HBO movie. Guys are playing poker. There's a fight over here. There's toilet paper being thrown, and it's wide open. There's no cells. It's just jail. Yeah. Welcome to your new life. And for me, this became a processing time. This was, I'm not going to sit in this situation and feel sorry for myself. I'm going to sit in this situation and realize, what can I learn from this? I have 3 months, 6 months here, who knows, to learn something about myself each and every day and begin to start to heal whatever is inside of me. And I started to talk to guys around me, and I started to ask questions, and as I'm healing, I'm starting to ask other guys in there questions as well. and I'm getting a connection with people, and I'm seeing wait a minute, people are actually kind of drawn towards this energy that I have. And not only am I helping them, but I'm also helping myself by helping them. The more I help these other people, the more I heal and learn about myself.
Mm.
So I fast forward about, 4 or 5 months, and I get out, and I don't have anywhere to go. So I joined like a men's home, and there were 9 other guys that lived there. And talk about a humbling experience from somebody that was very successful, that had his own house, to all of a sudden now I'm sharing a space with 9 other guys sleeping in a bunk bed.
That's
One,
that's a lot about when those things that we chase, we let define us. The job, the title, the community, the car. When those constructs define us, they create our identities, man. And it's like people jump off of buildings when they lose jobs. It's when
yeah,
people lose those social constructs, I think they wake up at the same time that, wait, that's not even real anyway.
yeah. It was for me, it was that. It really was, because I started to really be grounded in this house, and I really started to take things that I used to take for granted. I began to take them to my heart. I'll never forget the first day I was out. A good friend of mine took me to an Einstein bagel, and I had not eaten real food in quite some time. And she walked in and she opened the door and she's like, "What do you want to have?" And I just kind of sat there and I looked around and I looked at the menu and I had this big grin on my face. And she's like, what are you so happy about?" And I'm like, "I'm just thankful to be in this room, in this building, and to have a nice meal that I get to choose, instead of somebody telling me what I'm going to eat, or somebody stealing my food because they're bigger than me." It was rough in there. It was nasty, and I learned a lot about that world. But to be in this Einstein bagel and think,
Choice.
"Gosh, I don't have enough money in my pocket, but this nice individual is going to get me something." That was a moment of gratitude right there for me, and it was the first step forward out of my humbleness, and rebuilding back my life that I wanted.
That's a shift in belief, man. I mean, that's a conscious shift in belief of perception of how we see the world and choose to see our place in the world.
Yeah,
That's the power of the plasticity, I say, of perception, man. We can mold that and then follow that to a belief that really manifests our reality. In many.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. You and what happened, I guess, in this men's home for me was I became a leader in there. I was the new guy. I was the youngest guy in there, and I started to clean up after people, and I started to cook, and I started to ask guys, "Hey, do you guys want to meet, after dinner? Since we don't have television, maybe we could all just meet and kind of chit chat."
Man,
And what happened was this little chit chat became, "Why are you here?" It was almost like an AA meeting per se, but it wasn't. It was more about, listen, you could be an addict, you could be an alcoholic, you could be addicted to whatever it is, but that all stems from something. And for a majority of us, it stems from something in our childhood.
yeah,
And I was the first person to raise my hand and start talking
trauma.
about things that had happened. And I was getting input and feedback, and I was learning and they were learning, and we all began to heal together at that point.
Yeah, it's trauma, man. And, Dr. Gabor Mate, who will be on a podcast soon, hopefully. But anyway, I love his stance on that. I love how you said it. You stated it there that when you said childhood, a lot of times it's trauma. The base of most of our poor thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, they stem from trauma. And my friend, the trauma that you experienced at such a young age and never really getting a chance to purge that from you. Yeah, I mean, it was bound to bubble at some time in your life, and I'm just grateful that, well, for the first time in my life, I'm grateful a cop tased somebody.
I
Well, I
know.
guess, I guess I'd prefer him to tase more people than shoot them anyway, but
Yeah.
thankful they didn't shoot you. And, but I can see that, it bubbled. It came to a head, once you achieved everything they told you, you were supposed to achieve, everything was supposed to be okay.
Yeah.
And then when that goes away, it's bam, there's the bubble, man. And man, that loss of freedom too. People live that, for 20, 30, 40 years. You had to meet some guys in there that have been doing the in and out, right?
They prefer to be in versus outside, because they have 3 square meals and a cot, and they don't have to worry about anything. It's for them, that's their comfort zone. And it's sad and disheartening to know that there's so many broken souls that think that those concrete walls are now their home. And I tried to get through as many of those guys as I could. I really did. I became not the preacher, but just the guy that stood up and talked to people and tried to get guys to open up. Instead of talking about profanity and fighting each other and being mad at their situation, I literally asked those guys, like, what could you learn from this? Seriously, I mean, that's such a simple question, but let's dumb it down to a really acute point, and let's ask each and every person in here, what can you learn from the situation that got you here? Imagine if you got out and you took that one slice of knowledge and grew it. You guys would never come back here, because that's what happened for me.
Yeah, well, the first thing you did was break the first rule in prison, which is or county or wherever else they have razor wire, is you don't make yourself vulnerable. And the key to communication, I talk to people sometimes, is look, anger, communication, all this can sometimes be based in being vulnerable. And you were willing to be vulnerable in a place you're not supposed to be vulnerable. And that kind of makes people feel, all right, he's going to be vulnerable. You were telling him to do that. And then reflect back on that as well in the live and ask questions, man, rather than react, man. That's good, man.
It was for the first time in my life that I was vulnerable. I was hurting so badly inside up until this point that I always put on a facade and I put on a show so that nobody could see inside and see Danny Page was really hurting. And for me, the first time that I sat down in lockup and I had a card in front of me that said my charges on it, I was sharing them with people around me, and I was opening up about what I had did, and I was being honest. And that was the first time like I truly opened up in my entire life since 1984.
That one time,
that one time right there, it changed over to everything else. I'll never forget it. I'm sitting down on a bench looking at my card, and I'm like, hey, what are you in for? And he's like, don't worry about it. Well, I'm in for this and this and this, and this is kind of why. And I started to pull down my walls, and that was day one of it. And then it just transgressed and got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Did you see it that at that moment someone else being vulnerable, and maybe like you said, all right, it's okay, let me lead you out by kind of just doing it? I mean, I don't know why that one talk. What at that moment you think made you be vulnerable?
I think it was the only thing I had not tried in this life to heal. I think it was like that one thing that I was so scared of, because I've tried everything else, as we know. I tried to check out, I tried to do this, I tried to do that. But I thought, wait a minute, what if I'm just authentic and truthful? What if I just told this person the truth? He could not even listen to me, but he might. And what had happened is, now I'm not sitting by myself on this bench. He comes over, another guy comes over, another guy comes over, which we'll get to this later. But like, just remember that point of vulnerability for me is what created a movement that I created in social media. And it's extremely powerful for me because I learned it in prison. I mean, there's not many people out there on social media that can say,
we are not advocating prison for anybody. Okay?
No. Yeah.
Maybe murder, rape, child molesting. Yes. I'm sorry. If we can prove all that, yes. But drug charges, all this stuff. No, let's okay.
Yeah.
just want to be clear.
So you're absolutely right though. You hit the nail on the head. I became vulnerable, and I opened up to everybody in there. And some people didn't like it, but there were others that did. And it didn't matter what anybody thought for the first time in my life. It didn't matter what they say. I was so scared of being judged, Adam, my whole life. I mean, honestly, I walked on eggshells, and I wore masks all the time, and armor is the biggest armor I could possibly carry to protect the little heart that was inside of me that was broke.
You were keeping it buried, man. What you were doing, there was this geyser of hurt underneath there, and all you were doing, you were trying to put heavier and heavier shit on top of it to hold it, and all that stuff you bought, the jobs, all the attainment, all that stuff was stacked up trying to hold that hurt down, man.
Yeah, it was. when I was released, I didn't have a phone, a wallet, an identification or anything. Everything was taken from me. And it was in the middle of the night in Phoenix. So, it's in
Way to go
February.
rehabilitate state of Arizona. Nice. I mean, you lock the guy up and then you got to get an ID, but you have no money to your name. Yeah.
I had nothing. And so they push you out these doors. And at that moment, I could understand how somebody would want to go back in, because I did.
Hmm.
I'm in the streets of downtown Phoenix in the middle of the night. And what I did at that moment is I turned around and I looked at that door for a minute and I thought, you could choose to lay down and go back in there, or you can choose to stand up at this moment and fight. And by fighting, you're going to walk and find people, and you're going to find the community that's around there and find somebody that's got a phone and get a hold of somebody. And I didn't for that first night, but what I did is I found some homeless people that were laying down and had cardboard boxes that were about 50 to 100 yards away from the entrance to jail. And I was freezing cold. I didn't have any clothes except what they had sent me out with. And I went over and started talking to these people, and I ended up laying down and creating cover and space and getting warm with them. And then that again was the next step for me, that I'm no better than anybody else. All of these past judgments about this person does this, or they're on the streets because of this, that's all gone. My plate was so clear and open to help and just listen and just be with other people. And I'll never forget that night. That night was one of the most special nights of my life, because I was there and I'm talking, communicating, and these people are looking at me like, why are you here? You don't need to be here. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm actually really good right here. I'm not worried. I don't have fear anymore. I'm not living with fear.
Hmm.
So that vulnerability right there again started to just build and build and build. And then of course, once I got into the men's home in that it really opened up, because I started to see that my words and my being vulnerable and my dropping my guard and walls helped everybody else in that place. And a home that had such high turnover all of a sudden didn't have such high turnover anymore.
Hmm.
And that's where I started, Adam, to kind of wrap my hands around, maybe you have a gift. Maybe there's something that you were spared for. Maybe there's a higher purpose of why you didn't choose to go over to the other side, or why you weren't taken to the other side. And it's just grown from there. I mean, it has exponentially grown from getting out of that men's home, getting back on my feet, getting my business started, my training, my fitness company, getting my family back, getting my ex-wife, bringing her back into my life, getting my daughter back, getting all of the charges and everything expunged. I mean, I have gone through so much to create a clean history and a clean path going forward, to where I don't have to worry about that anymore, because that would have been for me very difficult, because I would have held on to that past and blamed myself. So overcoming all that, erasing all that, putting that all to bed, has allowed me to take some just monster steps forward.
And how long ago, or how long has it been since you were released that day?
It's been about 2.5 years.
Yeah, so in two and a
Yeah.
half years, man. So when you opened about all the things that you're doing now, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a short time to be launching all of those, to be as successful as they are too. The groups that you run online, the followings there, the events that you host. You're like you opened with. You're all over the map with just taking care of you, not you,
Yeah.
personally, right? But just
Yeah.
people do so.
Yeah. It's happened in the last 6 months, and actually I'd say within the last 6 to 8 months, I have began to heal so much that I finally was able to go to the cemetery, and I had a long talk with my sister spiritually. And
Mm.
I started to understand that this has all happened for a reason. And I am where I am today because of the choices that I made yesterday. That's one of my favorite sayings that is on every one of my notebooks. The choices that I made back then had got me where I am right now. Dealing with her loss, talking about it, communicating with her, healing, learning to celebrate her life rather than mourn her death, for me was one of the biggest transformations that I'd ever made. To flip over almost like a switch and be able to go to the cemetery instead of crying and running, but actually to sit on top of her grave and meditate and feel positive energy coming inside of me. is one of the most powerful things I've ever felt in my life. And I
Mhm.
use that now, like with my coaching and with my programs and things that I run. And I promise you, Adam, it's not me that's coaching these people. It's a higher power, and it's a universe that's just channeling through me. And a lot of times it's my sister that gives me the strength to be able to help these souls that are dying and hurting, that are coming to see me for help. It was probably my first retreat that I ran, to be honest with you. It was the first retreat that I ran, and I took this chance, and a guy had reached out to me, and he's like, I see what you're doing. I see what you went through. I want to do the same thing. And I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm gonna take this on. And I put him through like a 2-day retreat, and the whole time it wasn't scripted. It wasn't stuff that I'd learned from a textbook. It wasn't life coaching. It was me holding his energy and holding his hand and crying with him
That's
and talking to him about what he had experienced as a child.
Some of those videos are intense, man. The
Yeah,
way, I mean, look, there's a bunch of ways to help people. I even write in the book that no one owns the patent on how to help someone specifically when it comes to, you know, things we battle mentally, etc. There's research that helps. There's certain ways and methods. I get it, but I mean, what we go through, what we experience, I think that allows us to help other people in pretty specific ways with pretty specific issues, that are all tend to be related. You find those people that are really good with people in and out of prison. You find people that are really good with relationships,
yeah,
and with personal development, all over the board. But, when you first allowed yourself to be vulnerable, man, I think, you realize how powerful that is. That word's so simple, man, but there's so much about this world that preaches against being vulnerable or being open about who we are, but still protective in nature, right?
yeah. It did. One of the biggest challenges for me that I had to overtake was to overcome this fear of public speaking or being in front of a large group of people. So
Mhm.
one of the biggest things, as you've seen me do, is I filmed my first video, and it was a Facebook video, which for most people is not a big deal, but for half the population, I mean, I think the second most thing people that are afraid of in this life is death. The number one most important thing that people are afraid of is public speaking, and I was that person. And to think I was going to put up a
Li-
camera, a
Lions and
phone.
sharks. Lions and sharks are up there with me too, man.
So to put this phone up and actually film myself talking about my healing and about what I had gone through, and it was a simple 5-minute video,
That
but it
exposure,
reached
though, man.
out.
Yeah.
It
Tell me
reached
more
out
about
and it
that
touched so
exposure.
many people. And I was scared to death, Adam, when I sent it to Facebook and posted it. I was like, shut everything, shut everything. I don't even want to look. And then I think I checked it the next day, and all of a sudden I had like 38 comments. And but behind the closed door, there were like 68 private messages with people saying, how did you do that? Can you talk to me? I need your help. I can't believe you said that. You have no idea that that's exactly how I feel. I just, and there was all of these connections that began to take place. And that was like my first video. And then I thought to myself, back to that jail cell where I'm comparing my notes and learning that being vulnerable and showing something to somebody else is empowering. So I'm thinking to myself, if I did one of these videos, why can't I do 7? I'll do 7 in a row to prove to myself that I can do this. And I did, and that's where that whole 7-day Facebook video challenge thing got started that I began.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's been 1,000 people have participated with over 10,000 different videos with over 100,000 views. Talk about like a bunch of people reaching out and opening up. And to sit back and watch some of these videos, Adam, I know exactly what these people are feeling. And you can see from day 1 to day 2 to day 3 that they really start to just crumble and drop the walls, and the onion is peeled open, and they start to shine. And that weakness in their voice becomes much more confident, and their posture gets better. It's one of the best things I've ever got to be a part of in my entire life.
Yeah. The world basically pushes us down in a certain way from certain angles, of all angles, really, right? The social constructs that we talked about earlier, everybody battles those. And, to break free of those the big one would be fear. You know, we're marketed to be in fear. We're raised in fear if your parents are around for the most
Yeah.
part, right?
Yeah.
And so anytime we feel the need to open up about what we're worried about, whether that's personal or even just around us, it feels like it's weakness, right?
Yeah, it is. And so for me too, with this video challenge, the toughest thing about it was to do it in one take. Because think about my life in the past, and most of us too. How many people can do a one take video, record, end, and send? Because we all want to edit it. We all want to, wait a minute, I could have said a different word, or maybe the light wasn't so good. And that was for me one of the biggest challenges and hurdles to overcome, which then became like this ripple effect to every single person else that took the challenge. And they were all giving me crap the whole time. They're like, dude, that's so hard to do it in one take. I'm like, well, that's the whole point. Like,
Yeah.
there is only one chance in life. You don't get a second chance. There's no, oh, let's do it again. And dude, it touched so many people. I'm still getting messages on a daily basis on that video challenge. And it opened my eyes to a whole different world of social media.
Well, the internet's the beautiful thing about that, man. I mean, it's how now Diagula and I have reached out and got in touch. It's how that whole functional patterns family and my tribe of change kind of merged. And I actually started following through you because I saw a post from a guy that's been on the show twice, Eric. I always want to say Eric for some reason, but Andrew Miranti, who was on our show twice.
Yeah.
But I caught you in one of his feeds, and then from there, that's kind of where it led to, man. So the internet's the powerful thing like that we can reach out, whether it's with one message. For me, I mean, all of Adam's Rampage is where it started on YouTube, where my ridiculous rants I would throw up and literally almost but I would just put the camera up in some awkward fashion. Sometimes I was that guy that forgot to put the shirt on. And anyway, just kind of talk about what it was, and I don't know, it was kind of a release to say, hey, and when you do see that, people do think like that, they understand what you may be thinking or have the same questions, man.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the internet, man. It brings people together that way too.
It's been so helpful for me. When I started this video challenge 8 months ago, I had 83 friends on Facebook,
Right.
and I don't know how many I have. I 10,000, 15,000 people that follow me.
Yeah, I
I
bet
you know
at least those 83. I can tell you.
Yeah, so it's created a heck of a platform for me to be able to reach out and touch people.
I think your life created the platform, man. I think
Yeah,
the internet's just a delivery system.
you're abs- yeah.
If you hadn't experienced what you did, you would have nothing to deliver, man.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I've been putting it out to the universe that, I've always put it out for the last, I guess, 4 or 5 weeks, that if I could find more podcasts, and then you connected with me, it's amazing how it's worked, because all I'm asking for is just a microphone and a
You should
platform to stand on.
start a podcast, man.
Yeah, I've thought about it. Definitely.
Okay, hold on. Let's think about it together. All right, you ready? You want to start a podcast?
I have a microphone right here.
Be
I'm
back
in a
here.
I'm in a podcast studio. So yeah, I actually just came across this place that I'm in, and I rented it for half a day so I could kind of play around in here, have peace, have all this equipment to work around, and it's something I'm starting to get interested in, because
I can help you, man. We'll help you if you got any direct questions about what to buy, what to do, man. Just I'll help you all day, man. I'll cut a lot of your time in half. I promise you that.
oh, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
I mean, that's a nice mic though. That's the Shure too? I saw you.
Yeah, there's 4 mics in here. There's headphones. There's a badass computer. Everything's right here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good.
It's an adventure, man. You've already been bitten, man. I can tell.
Yeah, definitely.
That's it, man. There's nothing
But
but to do it. You'd probably agree with that.
yeah, I have so many stories to share and so many experiences that I haven't even began to touch on. And every week I have somebody that flies in from out of town that spends 3 or 4 days with me here in Phoenix, that I put through these intensives, and the things I get to see, Adam. I mean, this past weekend's event, I still haven't put my head around it. I can't put words to it for what I saw happen with this individual.
Take me to it, brother. We're sitting around the campfire right now, man. Take me
So
to it. What
uh,
what happened?
this gentleman came, you know, he
You
actually
there?
came, yeah,
Hey,
he actually came to the my RushClub event about a month and a half ago.
did
And
you say his name or anything? Because you cut out for a little bit, man, for some reason on this end.
yeah, so his name is Jason Reeves, and here's an interesting aspect. Jason was the very first person that saw my video that I posted. So September 24th of 2015, he still has it, and I still have it. It's the very first private message I'd ever received. I didn't know what a private message was. Less than a year ago, I had no idea what social media was. My biggest thing I'd ever done was post a meme from Morgan Freeman. So I had no clue what I was doing. Jason responded after seeing my video and said, Danny, you have no idea what that video did to me. It speaks to me on so many different levels. And we became, good friends through social media, and he would reach out for questions and things like that. And he actually, fast forward, came to a RushClub event here in Phoenix in June. And it took him everything to get out here financially. He really, really had to stress to get out here. And Jason is just shy of 500 pounds, so he had to get 2 seats on an airplane to and from. And his physical health is diminishing. And Jason's experienced some things like I have in his life. He lost his mom and dad a few years ago, and he's suffered a lot of family loss and a lot of friends that have been taken. So he's at the event, RushClub event here in June, and he's talking to Becca, my wife, who's an intuitive healer, an energy healer. And she's listening to his story, and she's kind of feeling his energy. And she said to him, if you really want to come out here and work with Danny, you should just put up a GoFundMe, because I can foresee in the future that it's going to work for you really well. People love you and people will support you. And he thought to himself, that's BS. There's no way. Nobody loves me. Nobody's going to do this for me. So he flew home and he thought about it. And he thought about it and he thought about it. And he had taken a photo of me and him at the event. And the next thing I know, he puts up a photo and a GoFundMe. And it says, I need $4,000 to get out to see Danny Page to save my life. I need to lose weight, but more importantly, with the physical stuff, I need to heal from what's going on, or else I'm not going to make it anymore. Jason tried to commit suicide about a year and a half ago. And unfortunately, he still lives in the same house that his mom passed away in. The door's never been opened. There's a lot of what I've been through is inside of him. So he puts up a GoFundMe, and within a couple days, he's got $90. And it was the 4th of July, and I was out at the pool with my family, and I got a message from a very close friend of mine that said, what's the deal with Jason Reeves? And I said, question mark? He says, does he need your help? Is he hurting? And I said, yes. Can you help him, Danny? Yes. The next thing I know, $1,000 was sent from this gentleman, Nick Martin, into Jason's GoFundMe.
That's kind of Nick, man.
It was amazing. It started a ripple, a shockwave of people that began to donate to support this guy. Now, people could call this a coincidence, but I actually get a notification right as the money hits Jason's GoFundMe account that Jason Reeves is live on Facebook. So he's talking about 4th of July, wishing everybody a 4th of July, happy 4th. And I looked at him and I thought, I'm going to say something to him because he's not going to know how to take this. And I still have the video saved. It's a live video, and he's talking and he sees me get on board and he's like,
Where can somebody watch it?
It's on my Facebook page. So just go to Danny Page, scroll down, you'll see Jason Reeves live video.
Okay.
And I tell you, like, at the 13-minute mark. And I log in and he says, oh my gosh, Danny's on here, and Danny, I can't wait to come see you. Just fingers crossed I can start raising some money. I have about $90. And I typed in the comment section, I said, have you checked your GoFundMe? Question mark. And he's like, no, I haven't checked it, but I'll get to it. Go check it right now. I'll get to it. Go check it right now. Exclamation point. And he's like, okay, I'll get on it. And you can see him turn from one computer to another computer, and he logs in and his eyes go like that, and the tears start running down his eyes. So he's crying, I'm crying, my wife's crying, Nick's crying. We're all watching this go down.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably like the moment that it all started for Jason. That's when he believed that people loved him and people cared for him and that this was going to work.
And how long did he come out and stay with you?
He was out with us for 4 days. So he was out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And he raised $4,000, which covered his entire trip out here, everything he needed from airfare to hotel, the entire, trip expense. And for me and Jason, we dove deeper into the emotional stuff than I've ever dug into with anybody that I've worked with. One of the activities and events that I do on my retreats with certain people that are mourning and healing is I will take them to a cemetery, and I take them there blindfolded, so they have no idea where they're going. So Jason is blindfolded, and he gets out of the vehicle, and he's holding my hand, and I stop over my sister's grave, and I take him to her cemetery, and I say, "How do you feel right now?" And he's squeezing my hand because you can tell he's nervous as all heck. He's scared, and he says, "I feel his hand like get lighter in mine." And he's like, "I feel calm all of a sudden. I feel at peace." And so I walk him a little bit further to some of my grandparents and my cousins and relatives, a bunch of graves that say Page. And I stop again and I say, "How do you feel now?" And he's like, "Even more calm, even more at peace." So I walk him up some stairs, and I place both of his hands on this big kind of, it's basically a morgue in the middle, it has a casket underneath it, and it's made of solid stone. And I put both hands up there, and I give him a notebook, and I slowly pull off his blindfold, and his eyes just get big, and he looks around and he sees all the graves, and he realizes the energy that he's feeling. The tears start running down his eyes. And I open his notebook and I give him a pen and I say, "Jason, what I need you to do is I need you to write your eulogy. As of last night, when you landed in Phoenix, you passed away and you are no longer with us. So I need to know who's here and what they're going to have to say about you." And I leave him alone for about 30 minutes, and it's extremely stressful for these guys and girls that have to go through this. So Jason writes for about 30 minutes, and he comes in, and he has a seat in this. It's a very holy room. It's very special to me in terms of my healing. And I had a couple chairs set up, and it's air conditioned, and we're starting to cool off because it's so bad and hot here in Arizona right now. And I look at him and I say, "Can you share with me what you wrote?" And Adam, it was the most shallow eulogy that you'd ever heard somebody wrote in their life. It was 5 people that were going to carry him in his casket, and it were 2 people that he had spoken to recently. One of them said, "I wish you good luck in Phoenix," and the other one was talking about Slash's guitar and a Guns N' Roses band. And I looked at him and I said, "That's it? That's all that you have for me?" And his eyes got a little bit bigger, and I said, that's all that people have to say. That's it. Those 2 things." And I said, "Why, Jason? Why is it just that?" And he looked at me and he started to cry, and he's like, "I don't deserve any better. I don't deserve anything. I don't deserve anybody to be here. I don't deserve anybody to love me." And I understood right then what I needed to do. And I had him close his book for a moment, and I showed him on the side of my arm, I have this tattoo of this hummingbird that's right here. Mm-hmm. And it was almost as if I willed this to happen, because I've never seen a hummingbird at my sister's cemetery before. In terms of energy and energy animals, the spiritual energy of an animal, the hummingbird signifies somebody that's extremely close to us that has passed on. And they usually show up in a time that they're needed. And they show up to protect us or to empower us. So I looked at Jason and I said, "I need you to open your book back up, and I need you to write your eulogy as if your mother wrote it, who has passed on." And about that time, I looked over at the 2 glass doors, and there was a hummingbird right outside. And so I looked at Jason and I said, "You need to look over your left shoulder really quick. Do you see that?" And he's like, "There's a hummingbird right there." And I explained to him what it stood for, and I said, "That's your mom. She's here. She needs you to write right now and realize how powerful you are, how important you are, and that you do matter, and you do deserve to be here." And so his 2 sentences that he had wrote earlier had gotten ripped out of the notebook, and he began to write for 35 minutes, page after page after page after page. And he finally connected with his mom, and he finally connected with who he was.
The pain, man.
Yeah.
The
It
pain.
was,
The
it
pain,
was
man.
yeah.
I told you, people connect in their ways that they've been through. Like you
Mm-hmm.
felt pain through loss that you buried and then let bubble. And probably you can see the pain in people. And then you knew when he was bullshitting. You
Yeah.
knew. I've sat with clients before, sometimes when they're talking, and you're like, "Come on, don't tell me the shit you've been telling therapists for 10 years," you know? And
Yeah.
you can kind of pull through that pain almost as if you can see that you know, that deep thing buried in there. And
Yeah.
finding a way to pull that out. I like the ideas of trying to help people outside the box, man, especially those that have been through the similar events, you know, that can really walk you through it, not somebody that's been trained or certified on how to do something. You know what I mean?
Of
I
course.
think that connection sometimes
Yeah.
helps a little bit, you know, better than maybe a degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He just started to like verbally vomit on paper. It was like things were coming out that
Purging.
he had stuffed down so deep, and it just purged everywhere right on paper.
Yeah, that's
And
that's
it was, yeah, it was the first instance of healing. And he felt for a moment lighter, like there was a weight off of his shoulders. And you could see like this calmness and this feeling of peace, this energy of peace around him. And so I told him, I said, Jason, go ahead and flip to a new page. And the hummingbird's gone now. And I said, I need you to write now what your father would write. His father and him had a falling out years ago. Deep, dark resentment, anger, everything, hostility towards his dad. His dad had abandoned him, and his father had died 8 months after his mom had passed.
he's gonna
So
have
he,
a lot of questions on this writing.
oh yeah, yeah. So I asked him to start writing about his dad, and lo and behold, his mom shows right back up, and
Mm,
she sits on this branch of this palm tree and just looks inside. And her wings stop moving, her energy stops moving, and she's just sitting there, and that hummingbird's sitting there watching him write about his dad. And he just starts crying for a moment, and then he shuts his book. And I said, what did you write? And he said, I forgive you, Dad.
there's the strong one right there. That's
Yeah.
forgiveness goes a level deeper, man. As long as some people, you know, can get to the acceptance phase, but to go all the way down to forgiveness, that's a lot deeper place to be.
Yeah. And his mom, Adam, she told him to write, you do matter. You are going to make this world a better place. So that's the message that his mom had conveyed to him.
You help people purge the pain, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, phew, it speaks to the power of fucking perception change, man. Looking back, because there's, I mean, how many chance? Well, basically, each day that you're in lockdown, you got a chance to make the wrong turn. You know,
Absolutely.
especially the first, you know, few weeks and months out. You know, those are when you can make those turns. And by not, you know, and taking a belief or perception, changing that, telling your story differently, you know, rather than saying how shitty it had been and all that, you know, you begin to tell a different story. You chose a different story, made different choices to do so. That's why your quote, I see.
Yeah, I am where I am today because of the choices I made yesterday. And it's true. Watching Jason then transpire from where he was 24 hours the day before, where he was like, this is kind of like my last ditch effort. I'm going to give Danny a try. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to continue to kind of float off to death. He
You
was dying a slow death.
And then it's well, I'm telling you, change can happen that fast, man. When a belief can change and that awakeness, that hold on, wait, reality is something that I control in perception, the way that I perceive it. When, if you can remember, you may have had many, but when was your first purge moment like that? Your writing or the venting of it? I'm thinking it's probably that fucking night it got crazy, man. That's probably the purge.
That's when it all came out. And that wasn't me. That wasn't the Danny
That's
that
not
was,
the purge, man. That's like
yeah,
that yeah, that's a little that's a little more extreme. So yeah, there's purging I think that's healthy, and then there's that. Then there's not being able to come to grips with the hurt and the fear and
yeah,
the pain soon enough, you know,
yeah,
and be able to ease that out. I think you help people do that, man, is try to say, look, vulnerability is where it starts. Stop being so fucking hard because you've seen some shit.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think every day after that really bad trauma, that the night that it all came down, was me journaling, me writing, me talking to other people. The more I talk to people, the more I heal. I learned so much from Jason this weekend, just about my own personal.
That was this weekend.
That was this weekend. Yeah, he was here Friday to Monday.
Oh, well, that's recent, man. I'm thinking we're talking about. No wonder you're like, yeah, just go down the Facebook a little bit. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This guy. One of the most powerful moments was Sunday night. My daughter was sitting in the house with us, and I always invite my clients over before they head out on Monday to a family dinner. And I bring everybody to my house and my entire team, and we break bread together and we kind of reminisce. And my daughter doesn't really know what I do. She knows that I help people, but she doesn't have any clue really. What, she's 16 years old. She's in high school. She's interested in that. And
well,
I looked over at Jason.
my 16-year-old daughter's sitting in the kitchen waiting on me. Let
Yeah.
me let me show you how I understand being a father to a 16-year-old. Because while you were talking, I got past a note of what she could go do. Now,
Pokemon honey.
now, hold on. Now when you're live on air and you're recording, right? And that's why I kind of disappeared for a minute, right? I'm trying to now. If you wanted to go do something for sure, when would you ask Dad? I'd pass him a note just like this while he was live on air. So it'd be like, like the dad that's sleeping during the night shift, right? That just says yes to everything.
That's right. That's right.
So I get you with the 16-year-old thing, but she knows exactly what I do. She knows everything that I do, probably because I talk too much. But yeah, she is, yeah. Actually, or she just acts like she knows or cares. One of the two, man. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought it was
No,
fun.
you're fine. Yeah, my daughter doesn't know like a whole lot about what happened to Dad. She knows that Dad had a blow up. I was at dinner a few weeks ago, and we were talking about people that. Oh, you know what? We were talking about a semicolon behind the ear, a tattoo. And I've always thought about having that. I have my entire body's tattooed, but I was thinking about putting a semicolon over there for the story's not over. Is kind of a remembrance for February when it's coming back up, because it'll be 3 years since my incident. And she's like, "Why would you get that? That's for people that try to commit suicide." And I said, "Keely, I tried." And she just was blown away. So I know my daughter doesn't know the in-depth story behind Dad, and that will come soon when she's ready and when she's ready to listen. But
I think you can find out on her own if there's a need for,
yeah,
to
yeah, my story's out there, and she could listen to it if she wants.
and more than likely she knows.
Yeah,
I promise you, they
yeah,
know. They're
yeah.
way smarter than us, my friend. They, she knows. I
Yeah.
promise you, man. Those thumbs always working on those. No, they probably hacked. They probably hacked your email.
So she's sitting down in our kitchen, and Jason looks over at her, and this guy is just glowing now because of the cemetery is one of many things that I do for breakthroughs, and that's probably the easiest one. They just get a lot harder and a lot more powerful and a lot more physical and in depth.
If I ever come
But
out there with you, don't do it with any heights thing, all right? I
no,
don't
no,
want to
no.
be. You know what I mean?
Never.
Frankly, I gotta say the guy's probably terrified because I mean, let's face it, you look like you're fresh out of prison. I'm sorry, I'm social construct judging, brother, because that's what the world would do. But
Yeah.
now they come out to you and I get driven out into the desert blindfolded. That usually doesn't end up well for people.
No, and that's how he started telling my daughter. He said, you got to imagine I'm in your car with your dad. He's got me blindfolded, and I have no idea where I'm going.
Yeah, that never
Like,
ends well.
no, and my daughter's just kind of looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" So he starts to kind of tell the story of what had transpired over the last 3 days. But then he gets really serious, and he kind of looks over at her like this, and he looks eye to eye, and he says, "Let me tell you what your dad does, though. Your dad saved my life." And he started just bawling. I started bawling. And he just looks at her right in the eyes and he says, "Thank you for allowing me to spend time with your father this weekend, because he really, truthfully has a gift. He's powerful, and he saved my life."
So
And
now, see,
my,
I think every dad want to be known as doing that for a living, right?
oh, yeah. I mean, it was.
Maybe.
to
I don't
see her eyes well up, and she kind of looked over at me and smiled, and she thought, I just think she's maybe a little bit interested now in what's going on.
Well,
But
when you witness to it, man, when people see
yeah,
it and they see how people can change and help people change, that's powerful. I really like to dissect people's methods like that and break them down from like a psychological level. And what you are able to see is kind of like you scare the bejesus out of somebody, which is what happened to you and happens to everybody else that feels that trauma. It scares the shit out of them.
yeah,
And you take them to a place almost like exposure therapy, kind of mixed in with this experiential moment. And but then when they're at their most scared, you expose them to your most vulnerable part of your life,
yeah,
which is your sister's story, right? So it's like
yeah,
right when they think, "Holy shit, what? Oh my gosh!" And all of a sudden, you're like, "Here's my wounds."
yeah,
You know what I mean? That makes impressions. That changes moments. I believe people change in experiences that they believe themselves to change in.
yeah,
If you allow them to do that or you create them strong enough, man. I mean, that's for me, that's the beauty of being human, of living like that, is that we're the director, the writer, we're painting we're doing it. This is ours.
yeah. We are the
And we
architect.
that's it. We choose with our thoughts to paint the pictures we want to and those stories and share them, man. I mean, those are stories that need to be shared, man. And how you work with people. These are the things that I think are missing from mental health, today, because everything has to be guidelined out. Look, no one got hurt in that process that you did, and no one took a freaking pill,
That's right.
right?
You're
You didn't
absolutely right.
There were no pills involved. You didn't have to go through your insurance maze, go to therapy for 6 months, and to see that, hey, the boy's got a big ass bubble of pain right there,
Yeah, yeah.
and then letting him know that if there's a way to purge that, get that out. You can really do that. I mean, the world teaches us to be so strong and hard, right?
It's the first thing that I tell them when they get off the airplane is I hold both of their hands, whether it's a male or female. I look them right in the eyes and I say, I need you to trust me. Do you trust me? And
Mm,
I ask them that a few times because I put them in situations where the fear is just off the hook. It's I mean, up here. But I hold their hands and I squeeze them and I look them right in the eyes and I'm like, do you trust me? If you trust me, I'll walk you into my arena. And I promise you, you won't get hurt because I'll be in there with you. And I think by me meeting their energy level, whether it's hurt, whether it's fear, whether it's being scared, whether it's rage, whatever it is, I meet them eye to eye and I walk through with them together. It makes it easier than doing it all by themselves and just walking out there, because when I'm there with them, there's a hand to hold, there's trust. And for the first time in a lot of these people's lives, they believe in somebody because they've been let down by so many others.
yeah. Well,
It's
that transfer, when you allow them to do it, it's the belief in themselves, that become cultivated, that when they can face something and face the fear or the hurt. But for the most part, man, I think all human really at a baseline level have, unless you're a sociopath, have a desire to be loved and accepted. And when that doesn't happen on many levels, that is the root of our hurt. And beneath the fear, the assumptions, the expectations, the anger, beneath all of that, the root of all that is that hurt and that non-desire, that non-accepted. And when we can embrace someone to an acceptance level, meet them at their hurt, that's how you pull the root of that shit out. That's how you really get in there. And it takes people, I think, because therapists, that may not have experienced a hurt similar, right, as deep as, say, loss or grief. I don't want to say anyone's hurt is more or less than anyone else's, because your hurt is in your perception. So but for those that have experienced a similar hurt, the grief, the loss, the sudden vanquish, of everything, that's a deep pain. And so when people, I think, connect and know that hurt, and you meet them there, you got to have those people that can sit in front of them and go, look, I'm not just going through the textbook basics here. I'm not just running you through the routine. What we're doing is being with you in the authentic, in the now, right? And being able to recognize, because a lot of times, man, people will hit you with that bullshit hurt. The little one, they'll open up first about that, well, 2 years ago, this girl broke my heart. And you're like, no, 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 no. You know what I mean? And you have to be able to drive through that. A typical counselor can't do that. They can't look at you and go, quit bullshitting me. I mean, you can, but you can't say that's not the right hurt. Yeah, right. You have to explore that, right? So, but you experiencing those types of pains, right? You can see through it. You can feel your way, almost not feel, but almost like, I don't know, sense it, right?
It's an
It's an
intuition.
intuition.
It
It
really is.
really is.
It's an
It's an
intuition
intuition
that
that
I've
I've
been
been
gifted.
gifted.
Gifted. I'm gonna change it and say you earned it.
Yes,
Because the shit that you went through, I gotta say, is a heavy dose, or at least part of the ingredients to that ability. You know what I mean?
I agree.
It's gotta be. So rather than it, I think a gift, maybe been there the whole time, my friend. Maybe you just, you know what I mean? You earned it.
I had to tap into it. I really did. And just like I told you, the more I connect with Wendy, with my sister, the more the intuition starts to come, the more I can foresee. The moment I meet somebody, it's almost an energy exchange when I shake their hands, and I can almost feel what they're going through. I can look in their eyes and I can feel their pain or feel their happiness.
Yeah.
And as a coach or somebody that's leading somebody through these healing processes, that makes my life so much easier, but it also takes us so much deeper. My videographer that was filming during some of that cemetery stuff, the things that were coming out of my mouth, Adam, are not my typical vocabulary. It's like I connected with something else and somebody else.
Flow state, my brother, is a powerful place. And I know
Yeah.
it sounds simplistic, but we know the brain shuts off the more deeper into flow we get. So, when you're riding big wave, when you're freestyling, when you're coming at somebody with all of your thought, wisdom, passion, you're feeling, this can put you in a flow and your brain will shut down. It actually shuts down. We used to think it's wired more, but it goes away. So, to argue that it's not just a filter of information, we like to think the brain, right, is the creator of the thought, of the emotion, or is it really just is it the receiver? Is it picking up ideas, thoughts, and we put them to comparison? There's so much to learn about the future of where we can go with, whether call them energies or whatever, right? But so many things have taboos. They have cliches attached to them. Hell, you can't say life coach and not be like life kook, right?
Yeah.
But here's the secret, though, people. All of the counselors out there that are graduating with master's degrees, they've convinced you that you have to get licensed through their state regulation board, which is to go 2 years and pay them some more and get paid for shit, basically be a slave for 2 years. But little secret, if you hurry up and get your life coaching certificate, well, you can open up a practice. You just can't call it therapy or counseling. You can call it a bunch of other things you want to. But when you're already credentialed on that end and they want to force you then to another 2 years of taking their test and paying money, I'm telling you, there's secrets around it. So it's not always just about, you know, getting something because it's what we want to say we do, right? Because we're a life coach. Sometimes you got to play by a little bit of the damn rules so you can try to do what you do, what you do. It's
Yeah.
difficult, man. And for you being able to switch that pain and that hurt to a story, man, that's the stories I think help, right? Yeah, look, I know when I sit around with friends or family and I'm in nature, I'm at home even, we want to tell stories, right? We want to trade the remember wins and not the outcomes. We don't go, hey, I was a champion once, or I got picked to do something, or I helped somebody once, or I found something. We go, it was 1984.
That's right.
We start from the top, and those stories and how we tell them are important. I think that's how the wave starts of change and influence, my friend.
It's where people connect with. When you can learn to really authentically tell your story and not hide anything anymore, and not candy coat it, people connect with us so much better. Even from a business standpoint, people that run businesses that are listening to this right now, if you can learn how to tell the story of your business, of how you got started and why, and it's like, if you're selling pens and I'm selling pens, and you sell pens for XYZ, but what if I told everybody that was listening that I've been selling this pen because this is the best pen that's ever been made? And my dad used to sell these pens, and my great grandfather sold these pens during the Great Depression. And we've put every ounce of energy. You could just start to see how much more people would grasp onto that story,
Yeah.
and how many more pens they would buy. It doesn't matter what section of our life, if we can learn to authentically tell our story with the walls down, the world would be a heck of a better place.
Well, here's a pitch for businesses to try and tell your story, but try this one. Try to tell your story and talk about the weaknesses of your product and say, look, we know this part is decent. We're struggling here. Maybe you as an end user could help us with our product.
Hmm.
Come out, and whether it's food, it doesn't matter. Come out literally and go, we think this is the best. We're struggling here. Give us some options. All of a sudden, if a corporation all of a sudden was telling the truth, because the truth is every corporation's got that meeting on Monday where they're going, shit, how are we going to fix this thing, right? If maybe make your Monday morning visible to the whole world. Have a Monday morning meeting where you're talking about the shit problems of your company. And
Yeah.
maybe people can be like, do this, do that. I don't know. There's a left field, that's a different but it's a full circle back to being vulnerable, right? It's applying that same word of vulnerability, man. I mean, you could put that V word in, well, I have trouble communicating with my spouse, or I have trouble communicating with myself. I have anger issues. I have social issues. I have social phobias and fears. I have guilt and shame. Oh, wait, we can go all the way back to that very place is, are you willing to be vulnerable about it? You will
True.
be vulnerable about any of it. I mean, I don't know. I want to say it's a foundation to change or some place, but it starts with being that, man. And I wish more people could learn to do that, dude.
It set me free. I'll tell you what. It dropped the chains, and it's put me into a whole different place in my life that I never would have imagined I could be here. I
So
mean, I can literally look at you right now and tell you I've never been this happy in my entire life. And if you'd asked me 5 years ago, could this be possible? I would have thought maybe if I had $1 million, or if I had this house, or all this material shit that doesn't matter to a hill of beans anymore. But for the first time in my life, like, I am excited to wake up every single day. And I'm bummed to go to bed because it's been such an amazing day, but I also know that there's a great day coming tomorrow too.
yeah, I would ask you, man, have you found that you can be happy in the now while still searching for optimization, tomorrow or next week or next year?
Yes, I don't look further than like 3 months though. I try not to look further than like 90 days because I'm definitely somebody that lives in the moment, very much present, just because I can't change what happened yesterday. And I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And something might happen to me leaving this parking lot today.
Yeah.
So I try not to look too far. But I have dreams, I have things that I want to do with my family. I have, you know, business things that I want to do to really reach out and touch the masses. I mean, that's been a mission statement of mine since I was 17 years old, is being a personal trainer back when I was younger, working one-on-one or with small groups. I started to get that hunger or that desire to change people and help people, but
Yeah.
it's one-on-one. So I've always thought, like, how could I reach out and touch 1,000 people, maybe 100,000 or 1,000,000? That's optimization for me, thinking long in the long run, what I could do or what I want to do.
Well, the internet allows us to do that, man. We
Hmm.
reach out to a lot of places all over the globe, man. We do that for sure. We try to. I think that's what I tried to do. I like you, man. I remember trying to throw the camera, being terrified, but I almost had to get angry first. When I realized and I found glitches in the system, issues that when I don't know, when you kind of wake up, you find that. I hate saying purpose because we can our purpose can change week to week, and so defining it, but finding a state of enthusiasm or something to focus on other than yourself that is produces growth and happiness in the world. I don't know. I don't even try to define other people's cognitive rampage. Like today, if this would be the definition of Danny Page's cognitive rampage, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna see. That video of you and Buddy on the mat kinda talking, well, getting intense with each other. I love that kinda kick the front door in help.
Hmm.
I don't even like treatment, but help. You know,
Yeah.
if somebody is out listening now or is sitting in a similar situation and assuming, well, I know people will be, that, have those buried hurts, those pains, those fears. I mean, what would you walk them through if you could, you know, in on this show at this moment, with them?
Really dig deep and be honest with yourself. Don't bullshit yourself, but be really truthfully honest with yourself, and ask yourself, at what point during your childhood or during your adolescent years did you have the most hurt, and who was it by? And find that person, whether they're dead or alive, and begin to write a letter to them and put every single thing that they ever did to you down on paper, and purge the resentment, the anger, the shame, the hatred, whatever it might be. Purge it and write as much as you can possibly write. and get it all out on paper. And once it's out, give it to them if they're still around, mail it to them, or more importantly, go in your backyard and light a match and watch those things burn away and get rid of it. It starts by going deep like that. You got to go really, really, really under the layer and figure out who hurt you or what hurt you, and be honest with yourself. It's not that hard. Most everybody knows what it is. They just are afraid to talk about it. But behind closed doors, open up your notebook and start writing. And what happens is you get into a flow state, Adam, when you get into this project, and one page turns into 10 pages, which turns into 15 pages. And you actually might even start talking about other people that are part of that core hurt. And that's where healing starts, is becoming aware of it, owning it, and addressing it, and getting some of those feelings out. Maybe that's not going to change everything for you, but I guarantee you're going to be a little bit lighter in your feet than you were before you picked up that pen and wrote. It's powerful.
Yeah, that venting, man, that's shit, man. I used to not write or do any of that for a little while, and that purge was kind of that book, man. I kept a journal for like a long time because of the, some abuse and stuff, and violence I put myself in later, but that it was thick, that long journal, and it was just
Yeah.
writing, many many times of just writing and putting it together and slowly cultivating that. I mean, everyone's got that story, everyone's got a story to tell, and I think we choose how we tell that story. We shape how that story is told with
Yeah.
everything that we do, man. And your choices since being woken up, since experiencing all the, I'm going to just, what I'll call gifts, or all those shitty things that you went through in life. I'm going to call those gifts in a way, man.
Yeah.
Because with those, you experiencing those, one of 5 instances that, you talk about seriously in your life, are allowed to touch 30,000, 50,000, right? Who knows, right? And so those, I think you can bear the weight, man. And I appreciate you being somebody willing to bear the weight of those heavy things of the past, to be able to help many, many beyond your few experiences of that pain, as compared to the many you'll touch.
Oh yeah. No, I love it. Honestly, it's what my calling is. It's what I absolutely, when people come into town and spend those intensive retreats with me, it's I can't explain it as a job, but it is. It's a job because it helps pay our bills and keeps a roof above our head, but it's way deeper than that. And the energy, the happiness, the smile, and the days after, knowing that somebody's going home with a smile on their face, with a whole different outlook, a box of tools that they can help battle whatever it is when they get home.
Yeah.
Giving somebody that empowerment is better than any paycheck you could ever get.
Yeah, man. We tell people actually how, find you, link up, at what to do if somebody's listening or hears this and is experiencing, some kind of pain, wants to connect with you. Where do people find how to do so with you, man?
The easiest place is just go to my webpage, which has a direct link to get a hold of me. And it's Danny Page, Page, truth.com. And it's got a couple videos from some of the most recent intensives that have come through. One was a man, one was a woman that I ran through. I work with both men and women. And there's a lot about my personal story. And then there's my very first podcast that I ever did. And there's also a link down at the bottom that just says, I would like to talk to Danny. And there's a place for them to fill out some information that stays very private. And when I get one of those messages, my eyes light up, because I realize that somebody's been called to work with me. And I have a mission now to connect with them. And I have no clue what's going to happen. I have no clue what they're bringing to the table. And part of the challenge and the excitement for me is I don't know where we're going to go. The minute they get off the plane, I have a little background information about them, but it's not till Saturday morning, till I dive into it, that I really get to kind of learn where we're going to take this thing. But the website is the best place to connect. And the podcast that's on there is the first one I ever did.
Well,
And
we'll send you this one too, man. When we're done here,
yeah.
I'll have Steve send you over the I can probably send you the link to be able to use the YouTube, but we'll also send you the MP3. We'll send you the audio that
Oh,
you.
that'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, And we'll put this up on our podcast and all, man.
Yeah. And it's just a very simple website that shows people who I am. It's got some information about what I've been through, and that podcast was an hour and 20 minutes long, and the two interviewers did not say a word. I took the microphone and I ran. And at the end, I think it was about a minute and 17, it was over, and I kind of came to a stop because I looked at my phone, and one of them was so broken up with tears that he couldn't complete a sentence. So the other one had to take over. And so it's pretty deep, and it shows people in real time how low I had to go and how deep I had to go and what it looked like. So it's great compare and contrast to see where I'm at now. Because some people are like, well, why do you think you're capable of helping people? Well, look where I've been. Look what I've been through for the last 30 years. And look at the changes I've made in the last 3 years. And then look at the changes in the last year. And then look at the clients that I've worked with in the last 5 or 6 months. That's the credibility right there.
Yeah, if somebody needs a challenge, look, if no one's being taken advantage of, you're not shoving big pharma down their throat, and what you're doing is helping people, that's good. Then for me, it's, certification. Hey, you're helping people. It's, we can help our fucking neighbors. Your other neighbor shouldn't come over and go, hey, who said you could help your neighbor? You know what I mean? Like, look, if you're helping somebody, we're helping somebody, and that's the best thing that we can do, man, is love and take care of each other, man. I appreciate you coming on and being transparent here and sharing, everything openly, man. I applaud that, man, and it takes strength to do so. So thank you.
Of course. I love it. Like I said, any opportunity I get to reach out and touch people, I'm all over it. I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to speak to a larger group of people that may not know who I am.
Well, they do now, man. And
yeah.
Hey, don't be you're a cast member now, brother. So you're on the Tribe of Change group too. So anytime you want the mic, man, I posted today. You're always welcome to reach back out and say, hey, there's a story I want to share or something. Somebody needs help, something like that. You let me know.
I will, definitely. It's going to be interesting to keep you guys kind of posted on Jason's transformation. Jason's got a year transformation ahead of him, and we actually filmed for the first time. I let cameras in behind closed doors to show the public what I actually do on my intensives.
Hey, you know what? What's the marker you have set for him?
As far as a weight or a date?
You catching up with him, or is he out on his own right now? Where's he sitting at?
Oh, so we have accountability check-ins once a week. Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
So once a week for how much longer?
I'm going to stay with him for the next year.
Okay, yeah, next year. So what if let's say every 3 months, give Jason an offer from us that he keeps, keeps rolling him, discovering himself, dealing with his pain, his hurt, man. You and Jason come back on, man. We'll check in at least for a half an hour or so to, once a week or that week, you know what I mean? And just to give Jason a little something else to look forward to, a reason to place to tell his story too,
That would be amazing. He would love that. He's trying to get his own podcast started. And one of the things that I did for him at the end of his retreat was I rented a very nice recording studio for him and had the computer set up with the mics and everything, and kind of gifted that to him and let him do a podcast with me, interviewing me.
Yeah.
And Adam, the confidence in his voice, from 2 weeks prior when he tried a podcast to Sunday, he commanded the room. Like, he spoke above me. And here I am being the coach all weekend, and then all of a sudden it's a role reversal, and he's commanding the room and he's taking control of the microphone. And you could just feel like confidence and, belief in himself. It was just exuding from him in the room.
Well, I'm glad that's the one. Is that the podcast that you posted? I think we helped share that podcast too. If it's the one you put up or the one you were just a guest on?
This one hasn't gone live yet. This one is going to be coming live soon.
Yeah, he needs time to get it up. Yeah, so that's funny to get it up. So no, but tell him, I don't know. It's August 8th right now, or 9th. They say 2 months from now, man. Let's check in with Jason.
I would love to.
And have him. I'll shoot an email. Any questions he's got, podcast or anything, man, please shoot it my way. I can help him. I'll probably have an answer. If I don't, Steve does.
Okay.
So any questions that you got too, we'll talk. But
Yeah.
say exactly 2 months from now, man, let's check in with Jason and let's go live with him and talk about what he went through. Fuck 2 months, 30 days.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would love that. That would be awesome.
let's check in 30 days from now, sometime around there, right? We'll plan it, and you and Jason come on. Let's talk about what it was like. I want to hear about what you do
Mhm. Of
from somebody that's been through what you do. You know what I mean?
course, I would love that.
You feel me? So like
Yeah.
30 days, we'll be talking anyway. So you willing to set that up?
Yeah, I would love to. He
Oh,
would love to. I promise.
perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I love it, man. Again, man, I got to run out of here, dude. But thank you, man. Thanks
Of
again.
course, Adam. Thank you. Honestly, just for connecting with me and inviting me into the Tribe of Change and bringing me on this podcast is, to me, bro. Honestly, it means a lot, and I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful. I'm just a humble human being, and any opportunity I get to connect with others, yourself included, I'm very thankful. So I appreciate it.
Thanks for saying yes, man. Look, I don't forget where this podcast came from, where I sent out 100 emails a week for 99 no's. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, I got no's from my friends when I was trying to do podcasts. You know what I mean? So, no, thanks for saying yes, dude, and telling the story and coming on. And 30 days from now, man, let's kick it again. Let's meet Jason and let's hear how he goes on the podcast.
I would love it. You're going to be impressed.
Looking forward to it, man. Again, dude, thanks again. And we'll talk in 30 days, brother.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Okay. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody. I appreciate you for listening to Danny's story and staying with us. And he'll be back in 30 days. I can't wait to see it, man. I want to hear about the intense videos that I've seen. If you haven't seen those videos, you need to tune in, check them out. I like the out of the box, man. I enjoy that, man. I enjoy the stories of people. I enjoy listening to the triumphs and people overcome themselves, and change other people and dedicate their lives, to giving back or at least fighting something, right? But Danny told you where he can find you at his, I believe it was DannyPageTruth.com. And he's all over Facebook too, Danny Page. You can't miss him. He's a massive dude with tattoos. Come on, I think if you search Danny Page, there's like not that. All right. So you can find him, man. But as you see, he's a gentle giant, dude. That's the part I love too, is people that can, change social constructs just by speaking and spending time with them. But if anybody else too, so there's a few people we've been talking to directly from the Tribe of Change with Dollar Mental Health Club, which has been pretty cool. It's kind of cool to connect with some of you online like that. And then we do some mental training together with Dollar Mental Health Club. So you guys see it anyway. So check it out, man. There's a bunch of different mental workouts that we can do together. But I hope you're taking care of you. We've covered a lot of information. I love diving deep into stories like that. And let me apologize first and foremost for I realized I made an apology for not being able to air me and Naughty's meeting with Kareem, because it never happened. So I couldn't air it. I couldn't go live. And I posted my apology under the Tribe of Change. And I didn't realize it wasn't on the Cognitive Rampage. So apologize to those that didn't know, but we had a miscommunication. Naughty happened to be in the forest and I couldn't reach him. So frankly, I was jealous that I wasn't in the forest, but I apologize. I was just glad that we could post number 3, at least for a recap. If Naughty and I record between now and next Wednesday, I will post it immediately. But it may just help us catch up to the myths of motivation that we're doing, because now they'll both be on the same number. So you'll be seeing the myths from the previous week come out on the podcast the week after we do them. But when we do them live on YouTube, we will record them live on YouTube, and the YouTube video will be up for the entire first week to watch it. Then it hits the podcast the following week as we're recording the next week. So that's how the myths of fitness and the myths of motivation will be running. We are starting a new segment Monday that you're going to see called The State of Education. And my friend Big Mike the Messenger, who's been on the podcast 3 or 4 times, is starting his show, if you will, on our network, the Cognitive Rampage. But The State of Education, Mike is in the schools all through Orange County, He has spoke at many schools in front of thousands of people and 6 kids, right? So the range of everywhere. He is a educational consultant, an operations guy. He's a disciplined guy, let me tell you. So anyway, listen to those podcasts previous, if you will. He's been in the top 10, well, 2 or 3 of those episodes in and out of the Rampage lineup there. But anyway, his show, The State of Education, will be airing on Mondays. And he's going to be talking about the state of education on various aspects of it, from teaching to administration to learning to all types of it. He will be interviewing principals, administrators, teachers, students, athletes, coaches, parents, all types of people, obviously, that are involved with the state of education. And we will be focusing on the state of Florida. That's the state that we live in and reside. So we're going to be able to pull a lot of local things here from the state and information. Also, I will be starting a mental training video that's going to be about 5 minutes or less once a week. I'm going to release those probably Monday or Tuesday-ish. And that's why you see the white screen, if you will, going up behind us. You'll eventually see these come down. It's a green screen. So we're going to up the ante from those really shitty produced Adam's Rampage videos that I used to do. I apologize. So I think they're titled My Work or something on YouTube. But those were years ago. So I'm going to try to up the ante a little bit with the videos and give you something a little more instruction, a little more didactic, if you will, but be able to show you with some graphics and what I'm saying, and maybe not have to scribble on a whiteboard like I love to do. So the mental training videos will be very short. They'll be coming out next week. Definitely next week. Dollar Mental Health Club, actually, I'll be dropping 9 little teaser videos to kind of tell you what each one of those workouts really mean, what those mental workouts are for. If you'll see on dollarmentalhealthclub.com, you will find there's 9 different workouts that you can choose from. But anyway, August is busy. Dr. Bobby Hoffman and I are frivolously, meticulously, passionately, enthusiastically working on Hacking Motivation, a book we aim to release in December. We're going to release that book probably the first week of December as our target. I am working with the master of motivation himself. He has set quite a plan. His first book actually is the textbook of the science of motivation, which is called Motivation for Performance and Learning. And that textbook, the story of how he wrote that textbook is pretty crazy. He had 500 days. He set himself a map, wrote 500 words a day, ended up writing a 485-page textbook on motivation, single author. Most textbooks are multiple authors putting their words together in a culmination, but he did this by himself, wrote the most used textbook, if you will, for master's degree to help teach our teachers into areas of personal development and motivation. He talks about the science of motivation, not just the fluff or the ideas or inspiration behind motivation. So him and I have co-authored or are co-authoring the new book, Hacking Motivation, which is taking his 438 pages something textbook and pulling the marrow, if you will, from that science and that textbook and applying it to very easy to understand hacks, if you will. So we're going to have a range of hacks that you can apply that are from the science of motivation, things that you can apply in all areas of life, career, business, relationship, life. We're narrowing those down to very specific, probably 50 to 100, something like that, specific hacks that we'll have as we're also putting myths to bed. So I think that's it. What else am I forgetting? The state of education, the mental training videos. We're doing like 6 shows a week. Oh, I'm starting a Florida MMA podcast with my friend Julian Williams. Julian Williams, as I like to call him, is Orlando's favorite fighter. He just happens to be somebody I went to high school with and who I love very much. And he's a badass. I think he's like 8-1 right now. Smooth jitsu. Most of the MMA fighters that have gone somewhere and fight in the UFC currently, like Platinum Mike Perry and Alex Spartan, who will be on the podcast when he gets back. But anyway, these guys all train with Julian once in a while. They have to roll with him. Everybody knows who Julian is if you fight in the Central Florida area. But anyway, him and I eventually will be teaming up to do the Florida MMA podcast, which is all things Florida MMA. We're going to broadcast live from his gym and his 2 friends' gym as well. James and Eddie, but we will be broadcasting live from there probably Friday nights, something like that. But I'll let you know more when the Florida MMA podcast will be starting. So, Myths of Motivation, Myths of Fitness with Nowdy will be back on Wednesdays. All right, when he gets out of the forest, I'm gonna line him up. It was supposed to be his friend Kareem, but we have time zones. It happens. So, and we have mental training during the week. I think I already said, plus the regular podcasts. Brad Burge from MAPS, Multidiscipline Association for Psychedelic Studies. Whew. Brad Burge is coming on the podcast probably the end of August, as well as Dr. Carl Hart. He is quoted in my book, The Cognitive Rampage. Dr. Carl Hart has changed the way that come on. Just do your research. Just look into Dr. Carl Hart, okay? I've been trying to get him on the podcast, and he's coming on August 30th, the same week of Brad Burge from MAP. So it's an exciting week of people coming on the podcast. And even better, I think I told you everything. Watch. I always had podcasts from more. So like, I was annoying them already for this length of time. Should just continue to annoy them with oh well. It's great. I love you all. Hope you're taking care of you. Hope you're Cognitive Rampage.